Catus Maximus here, this time with the XL GearBox double end ratcheting straight long beam wrench set. I did get these on super sale, as you can see there. That's the reason I even picked these up. I don't know if you can see that. 65 bucks. So these were really on super sale. This is the mid set. They have a short set, which I think is like 8 pieces, maybe 10 pieces. They have this 12-piece set, which is 8 through 19. And then they have a big set, which is 8 through 25. Of course, I only got this 12-piece set. That's all that was available. But I'm more than happy about that. And, yes, I did, or do, have the Icon ones. So I'm going to be selling, which are actually more expensive. These just, you know, on Amazon or something, are about 150 bucks or so. The Icons are 180 and about 150 on sale. So I'm going to end up Craigslisting these Icons for like 75 bucks. So what I end up doing is not losing 65 bucks. I basically just get an upgrade from the Icons to the GearWrench larger set effectively for free. They do come in this big toolbox tray, which I am not going to end up using, but these don't seem too bad. I'm not going to do a failure test or anything on these because that's quite a bit. Still got some fingerprints on these. These are brand new. That's doesn't make me super happy when they don't wear gloves when they're packaging these types of tools, but overall, not too bad. They seem to be more than reasonably straight. Do like the forging on the end. Looks pretty straight. Some people say I ended up with a bad set, but nonetheless, like on this Icon, you can see where it just didn't get machined properly. It has this bump here. Didn't really like that too much. The Icon, it's pretty straight, but a little bit more bowed. But something else I didn't like about the Icons for how expensive they were is if you look, it's easier on the eye, but you can just see it. There's like some bumps here, little lobes. This just wasn't ground very evenly. Just not the best kind of quality that I was really looking for. So that's why I decided to give a shot with these gear wrenches. You know, plus they came with a couple extra sizes, and so why not? So if we take a look at the beam, these are traditional gear wrench, so they're 72 tooth. It appears that they also have 120 tooth versions of these, but they're spline drive. So I like that these are more traditional 12-point drives. As we can see, comparing the heads, both the heads as far as their overall size seems to be nearly the same, although surprisingly enough, the gear wrench maybe is a touch bigger, but not much. The Icon does use this cross-drilled hole to put in the ratcheting pawl, but they do put glue in there, so it does technically mean that you can chip out the glue and actually take the Icons apart where you can't with the gear wrench. But I've read online a couple of reviews where people were really standing on these Icons, and the ratchet thing didn't strip out, but it broke right here because the metal is thinned out. They drill this hole through it, so you just have a thin little web of metal there and a thin little web of metal right here, and they can end up splitting on you. And so that's kind of why I wanted to give the gear wrench a shot, is because they don't have that hole that's drilled into the side. Once again, 72 teeth. Not a lot else to say. These things have always these things are popular. I really like the semi-offset on the box end, just because it's thin. You can get obviously a lot of leverage, and the semi-offset gives you just even more reach. What's hilarious is these box ends are definitely pretty low profile and can get into some tight spaces, way tighter than you're ever going to fit the ratcheting end. So that always kind of puzzled me a little bit about these wrenches, but I do like their length. Now, if we do compare how long these are to the Icons, surprisingly enough, we can see that the Icon, not by much, but it's just a touch longer. So at least that shows the difference in engineering that GearWrench isn't making the Icons. One thing I will say, though, is that the Icons do have, as you can see, a slightly wider beam. So they may offer just a little bit more rigidity. And it may explain why I heard it, not much, but a couple times of people breaking the ratcheting end, just because, you know, this big thick beam really does entice you to put some extra torque on it. So these gear wrenches, definitely seem interesting. I do like that GearWrench has a variety of sets, and I like the fact that even though I only got up to the 19, I'm going to be able to buy additional units going up to 25 millimeters, therefore making the set much more complete. And that's probably the biggest criticism, is the icons are only a 10-piece set, and that's all you'll ever get, and you have to buy some other brand if you want to extend it out, which is always a little bit annoying when you have a big mixture of tools just to make a master set. Looking at the 8mm, what I also find interesting is look how thick the head is on this 8mm. That's a little bit interesting. That head is super oversized for such a small little wrench, but even this little one is pretty consistent. And actually, if I go back here, that is something I will mention, is if we take another real close look, that the GearWrench offset box end is just slightly shorter than it is on the icon. The icon, they do taper a little bit, as you can see there, which I find interesting. But the GearWrench, really, really straight walls, so I like that. One of the other things about the icons, when they forged it, you can see right here in the seam, they really pinched it, so it actually gets pretty thin right there. You can see on this GearWrench that it doesn't get thin, so they did pay careful attention when they were forging this end. So the GearWrenches, as far as manufacturing quality, are a little better than the Harbor Freight icons, which is surprising considering that the GearWrench sets are cheaper. And for people who like trays or on service trucks, I can admit that this tray does work pretty well. As far as actually holding the wrenches, that's pretty solid. So these will bounce around, the wrenches won't be falling out. So overall, that's my impressions of them. Just got lucky. As far as where I pick these up, not all cities have these, but in my area, it's actually pretty recent. Within the last couple years, a store opened up, which is a returns and retailer surplus resale store. And what they do is they just call places, I guess, you know, the Home Depots and the Walmarts and all that type of stuff. This is a store that has everything from lounge chairs and outdoor tables to kitchen appliances, and then occasionally, a few times a year, they get a load of tools. So they're just buying returns, closeout items, other stuff that big retailers can't sell, and they're saying, hey, you know what? If you got, you know, closeout items that you're having a hard time selling, we'll just buy it all in bulk. And a lot of retailers go for that because they can get cash immediately and then get rid of just all the inventory in one go. And then this place tries reselling it. And so it just has a huge eclectic collection of just god-awful everything. And so that's where I ended up popping up. So one of the people have asked me where I find deals. That's one of the things that you can, is look for some of those surplus resale stores. They're always kind of have odd names, but sometimes you can run into some cool stuff there. And as far as this set, I think it is a worthy upgrade. I think the icons are okay. I do like the fact that the icons have a much larger size printing on them. Although the GearWrench is really embossed pretty deeply and uses a little bit wider font, so it's pretty easy to read. But it would be nice if GearWrench used just a slightly larger font. But other than that, I think they are more worthy than the icons, not just because of subtle differences where the manufacturing quality just does seem a little bit better, but also the fact that you can get a much wider range where you can get short sets and then build them up and eventually have an 8 through 25 millimeter set of these. Anyway, really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out. Oh, and one quick note, I do recommend the 72 tooth ones just because you get a little bit coarser teeth, so a little bit heavier duty, a little bit more reliable over the long term. And the fact that the 120 tooth version of these seem to be splined, which is not my favorite. Okay, see you next video.